Hi, I'm Angela Nicholson, and today I'm going to take a look at the new Canon 750 and 760D. Let's start by looking at their key specifications. The 750 and 760D have a lot in common, and much of their specification is the same. For a start, both have Canon's new APS-C format CMOS sensor with an effective pixel count of 24.2 million, and a Digic 6 processing engine which allows a native sensitivity range of ISO 100 to 12,800, with an expansion setting of ISO 25,600 for stills. They also have the same two autofocus systems, a 19 cross-type phase detection system for use when composing images in the viewfinder, and a new hybrid system that comes into play when images or video are composed on the screen in live view mode. Canon has also given the cameras a new exposure metering system for use when using the viewfinder. This uses a 7,560 pixel RGB and infrared metering sensor, with pixels being grouped into 63 segments. Unlike the 700D's IFCL metering system, the pixels on the metering sensor each have their own RGB IR filter and are read independently within the zone, which Canon claims gives more accuracy and better colour detection. In another first for Canon SLRs, both cameras feature Wi-Fi and NFC or near-field communication technology to enable them to be connected to a smartphone or tablet for remote control and image sharing. Unlike the 750D, the 760D has an electronic level that can be shown in the viewfinder or the main screen. As on the 7D Mark II, this has a dedicated icon in the viewfinder and it doesn't use the AF points, so it can be seen when pressing the shutter release to focus the lens. However, it can be hard to see when the scene is dark and it only indicates horizontal tilt, not up and down. The latter means that it's useful for getting horizons straight, but it can't help when you're trying to ensure that the sensor is parallel to a building to avoid converging verticals. Now let's look at the camera's control layout and handling. Both cameras are constructed from aluminium alloy and polycarbonate resin with glass fibre, and although they feel very similar in the hand, they have a different control layout, and the 760D is 0.2 millimeters taller. As you can see, the two cameras' top plates look quite different, with the most obvious distinction being this secondary screen on the 760D. This shows information such as sensitivity, battery level, exposure level, shutter speed and aperture, and it's useful when shooting below head height. It also uses less power than the main screen. There's also a button here to turn on a light to make the screen visible in the dark. A less obvious difference is that the exposure mode dial, which has options for experienced and novice photographers, has a lock button on the 760D. It means that you have to press the button every time you want to change exposure mode, but it stops the dial moving accidentally. The 760D also has this dial around the navigation buttons, along with a lock to deactivate it. As on the 70D, this allows for quick exposure adjustments. The new dial feels a little lightweight in comparison with the large dial found on the back of higher-end cameras like the 5D Mark III. It's also rather low down on the body, so it doesn't fall within the natural reach of your thumb. You have to stretch down to it. Like the 700D that they replaced, the new cameras have a 3-inch touch-sensitive screen with 1.04 million dots on a vari-angled joint, and these provide a really quick and easy way of making settings selections and scrolling through images. Helpfully, the 760D has this sensor which detects when the camera is held to the eye and turns off the main screen. This has to be done by pressing this button or the shutter release button on the 750D. Now let's take a look at how the cameras perform. As you might guess, the 750 and 760D produce identical images. The level of noise and dynamic range is the same, and their colours are indistinguishable from each other. The cameras are also capable of resolving a high level of detail that's a huge leap up from the 700D. What's more, despite the 6 million pixel jump, the level of noise in images is about the same as in shots from the 700D. The new metering system is also very good, and it can produce correct exposures in tricky situations when other cameras would get it wrong. That doesn't mean that you can completely forget about the exposure compensation control. It's still needed occasionally, but the cameras generally cope with high contrast scenes pretty well, even when the subject is quite dark or bright. While the live view autofocus system is relatively speedy, and it can be used when hand-holding the camera to shoot stationary subjects, it's not quick enough to keep up with fast-moving subjects. This means it's best to compose sport and action images in the viewfinder and use the phase detection system, which is fast and accurate. I found this AF system does a pretty good job of selecting the right subject in 19-point mode, but Zone AF and single point mode are a better bet provided you can keep the active area over the subject. In conclusion, the 750 and 760D are excellent SLRs that combine touchscreen and button and dial controls very well, and they produce superb images. The 760D is a little more expensive, but the electronic level and rear dial that it has over the 750D really give it the edge, and I think it's well worth the extra money. The secondary screen on the top plate is also a bonus. For more information about the 750 and 760D, take a look at my reviews on techradar.com.